This is a little home that I was raised in that's so part of my life and that I enjoyed so much of being in. So many memories are up and down in this area right here where we're speaking.
My name's Mike Carroll. I'm here with Be Real Films. We're here today to talk to Mr. Ray Stevens. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Doing fine, Mike. Thank you.
That's good. I understand this is the home that you were born in.
Yes, it is.
Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I was born in this home in November the 20th, which, by the way, Sunday is November the 20th, in 1932. I'm 84 years old. This is my mother's and daddy's, this is their old closet. This is original. I grew up here. This is where her quilts was. This is where what few clothes they had was hung behind this. This is all original. These are going into the kitchen now. This is the old kitchen that I've so many times that I've seen Mama around the kitchen sink here. And I've got precious memories of this home. It was the home that I was raised up in, and it's just been a great trip. This home, part of my life.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about the Great Depression? You were born during that time.
Yes, Mike. Back then everybody was poor, and it was a struggle. But we worked together. I guess you could say we know what to do, how to adjust to these things, because we grew up when things, you raised your own vegetables that you ate. You had your hogs you slaughtered in the wintertime, and I lived in those days that when we didn't even have electricity. And I remember when electricity was put in this home around 1941. And I was just a little schoolboy, and I came home and it had been put in that day, and all I did was just play with that switch and pulling this pull chain socket, and just so amazed by this, because we had just coal oil lamps the years when I was just a young boy like that, and then we graduated to Aladdin lamps, which was much better. But I remember in our church that those Aladdin lamps was just up level with a person could reach up, and we'd have church at night, and when they rang the old bell, it's time for the church to begin, and I was 2 miles from the church I attended, and it was just all those memories just go rolling back over in my mind of what they called it the good old days. Some people said they didn't want those days, but believe you me, I'd prefer those good old days to anything that we see now.
Well, can you tell me, in your opinion, from today to back then, do you think people were more open in helping others back then than they are today?
Definitely. Because, for instance, if there was a fire, say somebody's home was destroyed by fire, the old church bell where I went to church, Mount Pleasant Methodist Church, here in the Tremont community, that someone would ring, toll those bells, and you know it's a calamity, something had happened. So, such a bond of love in the days that I grew up in. I remember the days of the 20-cent gasoline or less. And I remember when my daddy bought a 1940 Ford and kept it 10 years and just had 40,000 miles on it in 10 years. And things like that, it stuck in my childhood. I remember how that we drove our water from the well, and we had just a big bucket there in the kitchen, and everybody would drink out of the same dipper. And right here's where the water bucket was, and where we drank out of the dipper. All of us drank out of the same dipper. And our children today won't understand how those conditions that we went by back then. I remember how that Mama would do her washing around the old wash pot and scrub the clothes and hang them out, and they'd come out smelling so good and clean because she'd make her own soap. We didn't lock the doors. We'd come back, our home would be unmolested. Nothing had happened because people were honest, and you heard of no evil as we have in this day and time we're living in today.
Well, in your opinion, you think it drew people closer to God?
Sure. Back then, we was taught the things of God from an early age. I had a dear aunt that when I was just a little boy, she'd get me in her lap and she would read the Word of God to me. She'd show me pictures of Jesus on the cross, and I'd just bow my little head as a little boy, and I remember shedding tears over that old Bible. And people, that was their places to go then. They went to church, and the all day singings and dinner on the ground and all the good preaching. And when they tolled those bells at church, it was a signal of time that it was time for church to begin at 9:30 each Sunday morning, that we'd go to church. And many times I've been picked up with some of my loved ones, and they'd let me ring the bell. And so what a joy that was. And I remember the great fellowship we had in going to the house of God and worshiping, and with those prayers, those old warriors, those old men of God that I remember. Even as a little boy, it just puts you in a state of worship when they would even say their prayers, and what a difference that it's made in my life. The things that when I was a young boy and heard from the Word of God.
Back then, the people that had the least of everything helped. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I'd say to that we'd share with each other always. When my daddy would have 2 hogs killed each winter, and they'd always send out. They'd send out a mess of meat to their neighbors up and down the road, and they'd just share their gardens together. They'd share everything together. It was a sharing time. And it was a connection of unity that I stand in just deep respect of those days that have gone by, and what a time it was when people just visited each other. I remember back then in those early 40s and late 30s that we'd go and spend the night with our kinfolks, and we'd go and we'd sit around and play rook cards, and we'd just fellowship together and have a good time. And when it's Christmas time, there's nothing like it. I remember the wreaths of red and green would decorate the windows. My mom would allow us to have our Christmas time and the garlands of the red and green. We'd even save the icicles, that would hang on the tree from one year to the next. That's just how we operated. It was a time that I go back constantly in memory of what used to be.
are you convinced that we could possibly have another depression?
Oh yes, I believe that things. It seems like things are collapsing everywhere, and it's foretold in the Word of God.